Chapter 16, Departure. The Thompson family stood there, somewhat stunned by all the events of the day, as well as dealing with the sudden and unexpected departure of Grandpa JJ. They stood quietly, wondering then, as to what could possibly happen next. It was Alice Stevens who helped jolt them all back to reality. "Mr. Thompson, you and your family might want to leave here while you still can. I have a feeling General Coulter won't be in a good mood when he arrives," Stevens explained, motioning towards their car. Alex looked over at the others who were all giving nods of approval. "Don't worry, we'll deal with the general, you guys should go, just like she said," added Colonel Schmidt. "If I know General Coulter, he's going to want something, or someone to show for all his efforts over the last 2 days. He's not going to be happy coming back empty-handed," explained Schmidt. "So, go," she insisted. "She's right everyone, let's go, hop in," Rodney hollered. "This time, I will drive," said Rodney, grabbing the keys from Marlene. In a flurry of flying dust and gravel, the car with the Thompsons sped off into the night, leaving the other 4, alone with all their equipment. "The general isn't going to be happy about all this," said Schmidt. "What he doesn't know won't hurt him," said Hunter. Suddenly, there was a roaring sound of wind from above as they looked up and caught a glimpse of the ship rising overhead in the darkness. Slowly and gracefully, it climbed up into the night sky with only a rush of wind to signal its passing. They watched as it lifted into the darkness on unseen wings and moved gently over the desert and then disappeared into the darkness of night. "What I wouldn't give to know how they do that," said Hunter. Meanwhile, Drake had been busy checking his video cameras and equipment ever since Revan and the elder Jim disappeared earlier. "I'll be dongade, he was right," shouted Drake. "What's that?" asked Hunter. "None of the pictures and video that I took with any of our cameras was recorded. It's as if the memories were totally wiped clean," said Drake, shaking his head. Suddenly, the silence of the desert night was broken by a soft throbbing sound of helicopters approaching in the distance. "Well then, we might as well start packing some of this equipment back into the helicopter," suggested Colonel Schmidt, grabbing some equipment that had been lying around and placing it back in the helicopter. Within minutes, General Coulter's helicopters were landing nearby in the darkness. They all glanced at Colonel Schmidt to gauge her reaction. "Don't worry about me, guys," she gestured with her finger. "My lips are sealed. And if the general asks, there was no one here when we arrived," suggested Schmidt as she continued loading up the helicopter. "Well, Alice, aren't you glad you decided to take the weekend shift? Look what you would have missed if you would have stayed at home," joked Hunter as he also started loading up the chopper. "I had a great time, Hunter. We'll have to do this again sometime," she grinned. "You really know how to show a girl a good time," said Stevens. Hunter began to laugh, then turned around to see how close Drake was to finishing up. Drake was packing up the last of the cameras, still shaking his head. "Don't worry about the recordings, Drake. After all, what do you think would have happened if you had got all that on camera?" asked Hunter, looking over Drake's shoulder as he checked the last of the cameras. Which was also clean, no video. "There you go." He patted him on the back. "Let's finish up before Coulter gets here," insisted Hunter. Jimmy had been watching out the rear window for several miles as they drove off the missile range and made their way back to the main highway to Uncle Rodney's house. By the time they reached the interstate, Leanne and Bobby had drifted soundly off to sleep and Seth was still busy asking Jimmy questions about what he saw inside the ship and what did it feel like to talk to a real alien and so on, until he too finally drifted off to sleep in the back seat of Aunt Marlene's car. It had been a long day and Jimmy was ready to sleep himself. He couldn't wait to get back to Uncle Rodney's house and dream about all he had been through this weekend. He would miss Grandpa JJ, but at least he felt a peace in knowing that his grandpa was in good care. If Alan had only aged a little bit in 60 years, perhaps his Grandpa JJ would live longer as well. Jimmy decided to rest his head against the side of the seat and pulled up his backpack to make a pillow for his head. In the front seat was his Aunt Marlene, listening intently as Uncle Rodney and his dad were busy filling her in on all the details she missed. "Dad," whispered Jimmy. "Yeah, Jimmy." "How long till we get home?" he asked. "Oh, probably about another half hour, Jimmy. Close your eyes. I wake you guys up when we get back," he said. "Okay," Jimmy answered and closed his eyes. As he rested his head on his backpack, he felt something strange inside, something that shouldn't be there at all, he thought. He quietly slid the backpack into his lap and unzipped the pocket. He reached carefully into his backpack and pulled the sphere out of his backpack. How could it be there? He wondered. He clearly remembered giving the sphere back to Revan inside the ship before he left. As he pulled it out and held it up, even in the darkness of the back of the car he could see a slight glow from inside and the sparkle of moonlight off its fresh, smooth crystalline surface. Jimmy then heard a familiar voice speaking to him. "Happy birthday, Jimmy. This sphere is yours to keep. Use it well and remember to always have hope."
You've been listening to The Thompson Sphere by David E. Farmer, also now available on Amazon's Kindle. Hope you enjoyed this. Stay tuned for more chapters coming soon. Have a great day. Bye-bye.